And Stu on the mic, broadcasting through the night, talking F1, getting every fact kind of right. From the grid to the finish, they're all in. Top Step Podcast, let the race begin.
Welcome back
Hello.
to another episode of The Top Step with Stu and
Reese.
We are here at the post-Japan Top Shelf show. Let's get things underway as soon as we can by starting the show in a traditional fashion.
Just kicking my camera. It's all too very...
Oh, it's delicious. Oh, cold. Icy cold. Oh, with a finger in the air as well. Very prestigious. Let's get straight into it. There's a lot to cover in this show. If it's the first time joining us, welcome. We talk about everything Formula One on this show and almost always get the facts right, proven once again over the weekend. But Japan. We had a big chat about it in the last show. If you want to catch up with that one on YouTube and on Spotify, as always, appreciate your help in spreading the good word. What's been happening, Reese?
Just, having naps while Formula One's been running. I mean, nothing a lot, man. Just getting on.
Yeah, just getting on. Yeah, same as usual.
Same old.
Absolutely. Let's have a talk about. There's lots to cover tonight. I've got lots to. It's really good. We'll quickly get into qualifying and do a quick rundown of the race, and we'll talk about some of the issues out of it and some of the ones we managed to find because there wasn't a lot that happened. Qualifying was edge of your seat stuff.
Was absolutely epic. It was incredible. I was screaming at the TV.
If you haven't gone and watched it, do yourself a favor and do that. It was filled with a couple of issues for Isaac Hadjar, who managed to, I'm going to say he had loose belts because I think that's what he did have.
Big balls.
But absolutely did the James Hunt and dressed up them big balls and got himself into Q2 from last. He was last with about 26 seconds to go and managed to get himself into Q2 and then into Q3 as well, still with that belt problem that we believe he had. And we worked out, you and I had a quick chat about it today. It's the highest G-force track they've run at so far, and obviously being in a new car, they probably haven't discovered 5G issues until getting to Japan. So everyone was sort of like, I don't understand why it's happening. Why are they having these issues now? And I think that's probably it.
It was just the weight of carrying racing bulls. Just grew the testosterone level enough that became racing balls.
I think you're spot on. And of course, speaking of racing bulls, one racing bull out-qualified one not racing bull who was previously driven by a not racing bull in a race before this race.
In a Red Bull.
Oh, God, I think I managed to get that out. Liam Lawson, of course, getting on top of Yuki Tsunoda, who I noticed as well put in a 1 minute 28 flat, as in no zeros, nothing else, literally to the button, 128 flat. But unfortunately for him, not as quick as Liam Lawson, who did a 127.906. And I was trying to encapsulate how close things were to my wife when I was explaining Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, and Oscar Piastri's conclusion to Q3. And there was that visual I sent you again. I've got to make a note of who puts it out, but they do an overlay of the top two qualifying laps.
It's an amazing graphic. And we saw it with Hamilton weeks ago, and you sent it to me again. It's a phenomenal.
The braking power of the Red Bull versus the McLaren is what makes all of the difference. And whether it's the car or the driver, it literally, Max will be behind Lando, and as you said, it was also about Lewis Hamilton, behind by car lengths, and then in the braking zone, just make it all back up and carry it through. So whatever they're doing there, I don't know, they just managed to get the result done again. So Max taking out Q1, which somebody tipped.
I'm not sure who. I don't know.
And again, Kimi Antonelli doing a great job coming in P6. Hamilton.
I just want to make a mention on that late braking though, and we've said it before, but that's why Daniel Ricciardo suited that car.
Oh dear, we can't go back there again, can we?
The tinfoil hat's around somewhere.
Obviously, just quickly touching on as well, Jack Doohan's massive incident. We're going to have a quick chat about that in a minute, but he got onto the grid and 19th. Probably would have got into Q2, I think, with a little bit more practice in the Doohan files. Bortoletto 17th, Ocon 18th, disappointing in the Haas again. Doohan 19th, and Lando back in the nosebleeds where he belongs. Bringing up or supporting the entirety of the grid. And the only reason I say that as well, by Esteban, is that the crash king himself, Ollie Bierman, who is no longer becoming worthy of that title, managed to squeeze into Q3 for the second race in a row for Haas. So disparity there, but probably the wrong way. And we'll touch on it all season about your absolutely spot on forecasting of lead driver, reserve driver, and it probably being the other way around in that team.
Yeah, big time. That's it's getting proven every week. Bierman's doing a phenomenal job in that car, and Esteban's doing Esteban things.
And then we get to the race. Now, Japan is not known as a track where passing happens, but I think we found out this weekend that it, like Monaco, has some problems.
Oh yeah, big time problems.
And probably of recent years masked by the weather. Whereas obviously it was wet, it was damp, the track was damp to start the race, but that was about as exciting as it got.
There was a statistic I was trying to find before the show, but obviously we, in recent years, can remember the amount of red flags and crashes and races and stuff like that. We had everyone finish the race this week. One car was 30 seconds behind, but he still finished. Everyone finished the race, and I wanted to see when the last time that was to happen, because the amount of rain and red flags we had, I don't suspect that it's happened all that often.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, there was that issue with the rain. With the how dry the trackside was and the skid blocks causing fires during the practice sessions and into qualifying as well. And I did have to take note of this little one that Ferrari came out with for Charles Leclerc during the race. They came out and said, Leclerc said the grass is full of fire, and the Ferrari pit mechanics came back and said it must be the fire. So they're continuing on with their inspiration during.
If only they had some of that water from the other race to put it out.
And of course, this is absolute bollocks. This did not happen at all, but very amusing all the same. And we enjoy when that sort of stuff gets put out. But yeah, really not a great deal happening. The race start was good. Both Max and Lando got off to really, really good starts. That angled in thing has to happen at Japan because...
That looked so cool, seeing them, I reckon, coming off their line like that.
Yeah, and both drivers got away really, really well, which was fantastic. And pretty much the most spectacular piece of driving that happened for the entirety of the race was on the first lap with Fernando Alonso and my most unfavourite man, Pierre Gasly, driving side by side for like the first half of the lap. And then after that, there was pretty much nothing.
Yeah, there was some. Yes, it wasn't a great deal of anything except for there's some lawn pruning happening.
Yeah, absolutely, there was. So I made a race summary, and those of you who tuned in last week would have seen that I had enjoyed starting to play with ChatGPT's image function, and I made this as my summary of the race, which is Lando cutting the grass in his very expensive lawnmower, the Red Bull tank trying to block him off the track, and that in the background is Oscar Piastri just trying to find a way to get past anyone on the racetrack. So that pretty much summarizes the whole race. But of course, we're referring to the pit lane incident between Max, and I'll open up the driver radio from this. So if you haven't seen it, have a quick look at the race. But basically, McLaren stuffed up their pit strategy once again. and sent Lando in at the same time as they sent Max in. There was a gap, which actually McLaren made up some time in the pit stop.
Well, there was a second Red Bull stuffed up the pit stop there. I think it was a second difference. I think McLaren's pit stop was 2.3 seconds. Red Bull was 3.3, which is what sort of put them out, side by side.
And there was this issue, or I guess it's a benefit actually, of not being in the first pit garage where the Red Bull guys got out in the lane, and Lando got released basically in line with Max. But of course, they're right at the end of the lane, so there was no real way for them to do anything, nor would they. And Lando ended up on the grass and driving down pit lane, had to get out of the throttle and pull in before he ran out of road, which meant that he then complained that he was forced off the road. I would suggest that he was never on it. And of course, Max retaliated with he drove himself onto the grass, which was correct in this particular case. And I think Lando was just playing the game.
Yeah, just trying to get a reaction from the FIA and the stewards and things like that. But there's a lot of times where Max says things and a lot of people don't agree with him and, see two sides. But that was clear as day, black and white. So, yeah.
This was another one that I came up with, which I thoroughly enjoyed, which is Jacques Villeneuve just telling everybody that fire is hot while Lando was mowing some of the lawn. And we'll talk about Jacques in a minute. But that's not the one that I wanted to bring up. This was what I wanted to bring up, is Max saying that this event was quite an expensive lawnmower. But you can see there in that picture what we're talking about with the running off onto the grass.
I just want to point out as well, Max left him with enough room. If it a little bit further back from that, you can see how far Max is over. That's not the fastest way out of pit lane. He left Lando with enough room to, touch the brake, slide in behind him, be wheel to wheel with him until it goes wider. But he just, yeah.
And as they said in the coverage as well, it's not like Max could move over to the left because he was about to cross the white line and move onto the track, which would be far more severely dealt with than Lando driving on the grass or even him squeezing Lando if that's what it was picked as, because of course there's a lot of safety concern of pulling out onto the main straight, particularly when there was traffic coming as well when this happened. So, but straight after this image that we've put on the screen, which is in the cool-down room, Oscar, in typical Oscar fashion, basically said, oh yeah, this was, and I can't do his voice, I'm not even going to try, but basically said in plain as tone of voice, yeah, I could see something was going on out of pit lane. There was grass flying in the air. And then after this, all of the highlights stopped. And he said, was that all that happened for the whole race? This is halfway through the race. Was this lap 20, lap 21, something like that? A 56-lap race. And there was that was pretty much all the highlights they put in front of these drivers and said, thanks very much.
But it's being in, obviously we see everything in the race. Being in Lando's seat, it would have been a tough race for him. He was putting pressure on. He was, he was quicker than Lando. He was within DRS. He was fighting to get past. He wanted to catch Max. It was a high pressure race where the three of them were under a lot of pressure for majority of the race, but it wasn't like that for anyone else.
No, absolutely not. So, and out of it, I'll bring up now the standings just so we can have a chat about that, and then we'll get into some more of the post-race stuff. But so concluded with Max, Lando, and Oscar finishing up front. Charles, Ferrari pretty much nowhere for me this weekend. Not one at all for them. Lewis didn't do a great job in qualifying. Had that little bit of a block from, I think it was Albon, from Gasly. No, it wasn't. It was from Carlos Sainz. I'll get there eventually.
Sainz, yep.
And that was all you pretty much heard about Ferrari for the whole weekend. They didn't really have a strong weekend by their standards, and even against the performance in China. But again, a completely different track, much more tighter, and perhaps not suited to their car. So we'll see how they look next weekend. Isaac Hadjar, driver of the round for me, but apparently not for many other people. Finishing in 8th. Albon, 3rd consecutive race in a row, finishing in the points in 9th.
I do just quickly want to touch on Albon before we move on. He was not a happy man during the race, and I have never heard him speak the way that he did over the radio. I've never heard him get so heated at his team or anything that happened. So I wonder what's happening behind closed doors at Williams, and I hope that it's just a small blip. But as I said, I've never heard him, I'd say, lash out in better words, but I've never heard him speak like that to the team, and I wonder, what's going on there.
Yeah, it will be interesting to know. But again, getting the points, so helping the cause there, and as we touched on as well, Ollie Bierman finishing where he started in P10, getting another point for Haas, who will be thankful for some signs of progress with their car after really falling after their finish last year. So Alonso finally seems to have had a slightly better weekend, albeit he did beach it during free practice 1. But whether that car's maybe coming to him a bit, I don't know. I mean, obviously Lance's result here, they're sort of polar opposite to where they were, and Lance got more points than him, so we can't say too much about that. With Lance finishing dead last, a lap down. But yeah, Fernando 11th, look, a little bit of a return, but they've got issues with that car. If Fernando's not fast in it and Lance is, then somebody's licked the 9-volt battery and done something wrong, because it doesn't make any sense that that's the way that team would be set up at the moment. I want to touch on Yuki separately, so let's just skip the fact that he finished P12 for the minute. Pierre Gasly had another dismal weekend and finished in P13. He is an absolute failure of a driver. We'll move right on to Carlos Sainz in 14th. Hey, this is one that I want to get your opinion on, and they were talking about it a couple of times over the weekend about how it's okay because Carlos says that it takes him a little while to adapt to cars. They put Lewis Hamilton, who is obviously a better driver than Carlos Sainz, into the Ferrari, and it hasn't taken him 3 races to adapt to the car at all. Why does it take Carlos so long to get into a car that he's known he's been getting into since last season to actually go quick in it?
Yes, understand what you're saying with Lewis. However, is the level of racing that Sainz does the same level of Lewis Hamilton? No. So I'm not sure if the level will be Hamilton going from 7th to 1st will be the same jump as Sainz going from 14th to 7th in the same machinery type, same learning sort of barriers. Whereas we expect Hamilton to be higher than 7th. In a Williams, I probably wouldn't expect Carlos to be any higher than 7th. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but Oliver Bierman qualified and finished 10th in a Haas.
Yeah.
So I just, I just don't understand how it takes that long.
Do we know if Sainz, I did try and find this and I couldn't find it, but do we know if Sainz got the new chassis this weekend?
I don't know. And in the typical tradition of this show of getting things almost right, I'm going to say he did just because it suits my narrative. But no, I actually didn't hear that he had, so I don't believe so. Yeah. I just wondered why it's taking him so long, because he can clearly drive. There's no question about that whatsoever. But yeah, he just... I'm expecting the gap between himself and Alex to close, and probably quicker than it is. That's all.
I do absolutely get what you're saying, and I do think we will see it. But obviously, there's a few questions in terms of the chassis and that sort of thing. I also think one lap pace for Carlos has been an issue in the car, and obviously we saw Japanese Grand Prix just not have that same overtaking and things like that. So where Albon got that 1 lap speed in Q3, then if Sainz was there, he might have had a better result. But I think extracting 1 lap pace out of it might be the issue.
Yeah, and you might be right. I was just quickly flicking back there to have a look at the qualifying results because I couldn't remember the relative times. Only a 10th between him and Alex, and obviously the closeness and being knocked out of Q3 there, it was tight. So hopefully Bahrain, which again is coming up, will suit him better and maybe he can make more progress. Jack Doohan, obviously the Australian love affair continues there for me, but
I'm expecting fireworks or something to start coming out when you mention his name now.
To be fair, outside of Isaac Hadjar, I think he actually had the drive of the race. He did start on soft tyres, to put it into context, but he also started 19th, and at a track where almost nobody could pass anybody, drove aggressively but well, and probably improved on that type of aggressive driving from China, but managed to finish 15th at I mean, Alpine couldn't make it any more obvious if they tried that they do not want him in that car. I understand the rookie decision and the rookie lap and having a Japanese driver test an Alpine for, and again, I'll get to this in a second in my Mike Crack rant, but the idea of putting Jack Doohan anywhere other than in that car for free practice one is ridiculous when they put a Toyota development driver who effectively should be in a Haas, given what potentially could be going on there next season. And they
not even what's going on next season. Like Toyota are partners with Haas now.
True. So why? I get the Japan thing, and I think that whole Japan thing has been blown way out of proportion. Like, okay, great. Well, we'll put let's get, I don't know, one of the V8 supercar drivers to have a crack in the Mercedes next year when they come to Australia because it's in Australia. Like, the whole thing was blown way out of proportion.
Whilst that sounds ridiculous, I'm actually absolutely here for it.
Oh, absolutely. But it's been blown way out of proportion. Why in Japan, I have no idea whatsoever. They can't even manage to keep the grass from stopping to catch on fire in one of the most technologically advanced countries on the planet. It's called water. But anyway.
The fact they have grass is crazy.
Like, it just obviously clearly really grinds my gears. But why they decided to pull Jack out of the car, and if you've read enough about what happened and what caused the incident, he completely owns it, by the way. But in testing, and it's the only intelligent thing Jacques Villeneuve said all weekend, and I'm not sure it wasn't written for him, but in testing, he was able to drive that car with DRS open around that corner in simulation, I should say. So, of course, muscle memory comes into that. So rather than actually give him time in the car in real life, they put some bloke in that nobody's ever heard of before to do parade laps in the car and then say, oh, don't worry, Jack, here you go, mate. Here's the key. And they toss it to him. He kicks the tyres, makes sure they're inflated, and then buggers off out onto the track. 330 k's an hour into a wall. Like, it's just, there's some sort of, I just don't understand.
Whilst leaving you to have your doing a love affair rant, I do also just want to add some more fuel to the fire in saying that in fashion of getting the facts kind of right, he hadn't driven at Japan before.
No, and I said that he had. But I was right. He hadn't done it in a Formula One car. He did it in Formula Asia. Formula Asia.
Was it Formula Asia? Yep.
Which is kind of like what they run in the Formula One Academy.
Okay, yep.
So it's totally different, but he did know the track, but not at that pace.
No. So
anyway,
I'm happy he's okay, because that was a crazy crash.
Well, he drove injured. He's got an injury to his left forearm, and he couldn't get out of the car after the race.
Oh wow! Yeah, okay.
So Esteban Ocon helped him get out of the car, which was seen and helped him walk away. But again, in typical Australian fashion, you turn on it. If you're on the field, you're fit to play. So he did, and he drove really well. So I think he deserves some credit for what he put in. I know I'm biased on the show, without any question, and everyone's probably sick and tired of hearing it by now. But I haven't heard it in the comments, so until I do, I'm going to keep saying it. Your man Nico up into 16th. Pretty pedestrian weekend for Kick, but not too much of a surprise. Liam 17th, undone by strategy. They pitted him early and ran a really long second stint. No?
I don't know. I don't want to say it.
You can.
That isn't the Liam we saw last year in Racing Bulls. I think it might take him a couple of weeks to get some feet back to where we saw him last year.
You can't be saying that. I've just absolutely slaughtered Carlos Sainz for taking 3 weeks to get into the Williams.
No, but Carlos Sainz has already gotten over his being destroyed by Red Bull as he was.
This is true.
But he's gotten over that. Where I think a week of Liam, what had happened to him, I think it really, I hope, I don't want to say this long term, but I think it would have dulled anyone. So I don't think we saw Liam as Liam on the weekend.
No. So Esteban 18th. Esteban Ocon. I'll just call him Esteban from now on. Esteban 18th. Bortoletto 19th, who's probably doing as well in that car as we expected.
Disappointing because he is a crazy talent. So, and
He
we
is.
spoke about this for, pre-season, and we think he was going to be limited by that car, and he really is.
100% he is. And Lance Stroll celebrating his father, doling out the readies and spending 50 mil buying the rest of Aston Martin by coming dead last. Uh,
So
it,
I did a little experiment last week, just in terms of what I've said in the past in regards to Kimi Antonelli. I don't know if you remember, and you can go back and listen to it in the last episode, but I said about Lance Stroll driving to a higher expectation than I ever sort of had, and now he's back to 20th. So everything is now right in the world.
started to balance itself back out. There is no doubt whatsoever. And speaking of that, yeah, so he's finally doing what you expected, as was on the list. Let's go back to Yuki. Now, I'm really looking forward to not talking about Red Bulls as much as we do, but we have to cover this off. Did Yuki deliver? He talked the biggest game anyone sub 5 foot has talked since Muggsy Bogues said that the Charlotte Hornets would win against the Jordan Chicago Bulls. I would love your breakdown of what he should have delivered and what he did deliver, and whether or not Max was just making him feel better, or maybe, I don't know, Max couldn't reach the pedal properly. Like, how do we go from a 10th to not even close and further away than even close during the race?
Yeah, when we spoke about this again, but he should have just shut up and saw what happened with Liam, saw the car. He should have just shut up, got in the car, and then there was zero of expectations. But for him to come out and say the car wasn't as hard to drive and all of this sort of thing, and then again being outperformed by a racing bull, is just part of the reason why we said that he shouldn't have deserved the Red Bull seat to begin with is what he says, how he says it, and the way he sort of carries the ego, which again is like a Chihuahua sort of ego style. Bark much bigger than the bite. But yeah, that's literally all I have to say about it, because I shook my head and carried on.
I think it was probably a par. I think if we take into consideration all the crap that he came out with versus where everybody else actually probably recognised he was, it's probably a pass mark.
And if he hadn't have said a word, if he had have just gone, "Yep, guys, I've got this opportunity. I'm going to jump in the car. I'm going to see what I can do," and that was the result, I would actually be happy, because the Red Bull was 20th in the hands of Lawson. So this is a step in the right direction and first race in the car and all those sort of things. No preseason testing in the Red Bull and things like that. So I get where he is, and as you say, I expected him to be where that is. But when you come out and say those sort of things, you have to deliver. We always put NBA references in there, but Jordan wasn't smack talking the rest of the court and then not delivering. He was telling you that he was going to demolish you, proceeding by demolishing you. There was no questions of that. So unless you have that ability and you can see the future, that's what's going to happen, Yuki just should have shut up. And then he wouldn't have had I wouldn't have said any slack about him at all. I wouldn't have any ill words to say at all.
It's the strongest result of that second car, obviously, so far this season. The question that will forever remain unanswered for me is, would Liam have delivered the same result in that car at a track that he knows? And we will never find that out, obviously. But to get blown away by that distance against Max from where you started suggests to me they either turned the wick up on Max's car, or Max knew the whole time and just wanted to help, or some version of that story, because as soon as it got to qualifying, it was just totally different in terms of class.
The other thing, Red Bull changed the car to suit Yuki. So Max's car and Yuki's car had different wings, had different downforce, all of those things to try and help Yuki out, which made it even more just infuriating that he said all the things that he said and then delivered what he did.
They did say that, you're right, and that he was running a higher wing, which is probably what slowed the car down a little bit.
So that they made it easier for him to drive, which coming out and saying that the car's not hard to drive, and then the engineers saying, "Oh, we've changed it to make it easier for him to drive."
So I'll grab this one, which I messaged you immediately after the race. Max Verstappen wins the race. Thoughts, driver of the day. And the answer that everyone came up with was Yuki Tsunoda. So if we recap his race, he gained 2 places in the nosebleeds, and that was it. And I get that driver of the day is voted on by the public, and I get that it was in Japan, but surely there were more people voting, and surely there has to be some rationale around why it's driver of the day, or they have to nominate like 3 drivers and you pick the driver of the day. There is no way that Yuki was driver of the day at all.
You are forgetting that Max was winning races by 30 seconds and he never won driver of the day.
Yeah, because it was boring. Like, as much as I enjoyed it, it was boring. So he wasn't driver of the day by like driving away in the race and beating everyone. He was driver of the day because of passes, and driver of the day because of this and that and whatever else was going on. So it's yeah. Like, I mean, I
whilst I think I might know this answer, for you, who was driver of the day?
I think Isaac deserved it.
Yep.
I think he had the strongest drive in the race. I understand what I just mumbled on about Jack doing, but I think that he had the strongest race. I really do. I think he was consistent. I think he drove really well. He defended well when he needed to, and yeah, had a good race overall. So I think out of everyone, probably him.
Yeah, and with the heaviest car as well on the track with those big balls.
Absolutely, and not to mention the white livery that they ran, which comes with it a heavy, heavy burden. Next on our list of things to cover off, let's talk McLaren. Now, you were thoroughly comprehensive in your review of McLaren at the start of the year and the problems that they may face. And we are 3 seasons. We are 3 races into the season. And
guess what?
They are in big, big, big dog doo-doo.
Yes, very, very big dog doo-doo. But I picked something up from the race in the interview with Piastri. And he was asked the question, he was obviously had DRS on Lando. He said he had the pace on Max, and there was no decision or discussion to sort of swap the cars. He said it was shut down pretty quickly. What he did say, however, was that's what happens when you qualify behind Lando. So I wonder if the team orders that we speak about or papaya rules of racing each other, the preference, like I was saying in past episodes, the preference goes to who qualifies higher.
It may do. This was the comment that grabbed my attention, which is probably about 4 laps, maybe 5 laps from the end of the race, where Lando would get into DRS with Max, and then Max would pull away. So I think Max was sandbagging a little bit because he knew he didn't need to do anything silly to keep the win. But the whole time that was happening, and the is it Stella, their race engineer, after the race said that Lando was caught in this ping pong, and basically that it was disturbing the aero on the front of his car every time he got within a second. He was struggling for front end downforce. And when I spoke with you about this earlier on, you made a extremely good retort, which was that why then was Oscar not struggling half a second behind Lando for 4 or 5 laps?
But it was even longer than that. That he was in that dirty air within that sort of second to half a second. I think Stella was saying that was an elastic.
Yeah, then that's it.
Yeah, elastic.
Like a rubber band.
I think, he was in this sort of elastic with Max. But Piastri was right behind him up until 3/10, and then he was out to half a second, and then a second, and then back in, lap out for, I reckon, over more than 10 laps.
Yeah, okay.
That he was just sitting there. So, and he had more pace and he had, more downforce and more grip. There was a pretty simple, and I know we're pretty high on technical terms and things like that, but the simple way to put this whole thing is why McLaren should have let Piastri through was he was faster. That's it.
I don't know about you, but I kind of feel like that's got something to do with racing and what you're intending to do. Like, it feels a bit like a Ferrari thing to say, but I feel like if you have faster lap times than the other cars for the whole race, you're probably going to finish first. So, and there'll be some people out there with their heads exploding. But I feel like that they just don't have an answer for it, and because they can't decide who they want to support and how papaya rules work, they're going to keep having this happen to their race weekends every single time, which is that it'll all present well, but the person in not the fastest car, who is the best driver, will just continue to wreck their race weekends. And we're 1 point different. And I loved commenting online at all of the people who, including Fox Sports, shout out to Fox Sports. They are, whoever are the journalists at Fox Sports, and I hope they pick this up and run with it. And I hope I get like some sort of pink slip in the letter, in the mailbox. Whoever does their Formula One coverage is almost as good as whoever does their Premier League coverage, which is they have absolutely no fucking idea about what goes on in the sport whatsoever. So they just need to stop trying to cover it and let people like us who almost get the facts right get closer to the story than they do, because they are fucking hopeless. They came out and said, oh, Max is back in the title race. When did he ever leave?
He was never out of the title race.
He's the current world champion in the fastest car for the last decade.
He's the current 4-time world champion in a driver of the ages. Like
they just have absolutely no fucking idea.
What are they? Talent of a decade type scenario. I saw that, and I went to Tyra, and I went, no, I'll leave it.
Speaking of people who have absolutely no fucking idea whatsoever, let's have a little bit of a chat about the person depicted in this image.
We're just to put it out there, I'm not saying his name. I am so angry. I am not even saying his name. Otherwise, I may throw something.
Whoever saw his performance at the track that holds his father's name, that bears his father's name last year, and thought, you know what? He needs to get a full-time gig on Formula One coverage. He was so bad. I thought, and I didn't know at the time that he was going to be covering this weekend full force. I messaged you and I said that I thought that they'd accidentally let some geriatric old bloke get a mic and get onto the coverage because I didn't know who it was. He looks like he's 942, and some of the stuff and the opinions and crap that he comes out with, it literally wrecked the coverage.
You could even hear Crofty getting annoyed with him. And like Crofty puts up with a lot of stuff. He crossed to him and he said, okay, take us through this lap. And there was 10 seconds of silence. He's like, oh, sorry, I was watching the race. Like, that's not what you're there for, mate. Like,
and they had him down on, I can't remember which corner it was, but they had him down on one of the fast corners, and I literally swear they switched to him, and he's there going, vroom, vroom, with his mouth, and making car noises. Like, he's just, I can't stand him. I literally can't stand him. It's like watching local V8 supercars and having to put up with Mark Scaife. Like, it's just terrible. So whoever is out there making the decisions, take it from us. We've done a poll, and you need to get rid of him. Give him one race. That's it. Sign his check and send him out to pasture where he needs to go.
It was unanimous, 100% vote. Get him out.
Definitely not driver of the day material, and another one that's just getting me cranky.
If I was to ever turn on the Formula One and him and Nico Rosberg were commentating a race, I would throw my TV out the window. I would know.
Speaking of throwing your TV out the window, we did have a good laugh at this potential that probably did actually happen. This is a picture of George Russell having a little tanty that Max was mean again because he tried to force one of his friends off the track. Mummy, Max was mean again. And this is what we came up with. If you can't tell, I'm loving ChatGPT being able to bring my my mind to life. But I'm really, really enjoying it. Anyway, we'll get back to the more important stuff. This is Fox level journalism, this bit.
Big time. I just wanted to the message that you sent me through during the race. Just lucky it wasn't George. It stopped the car, get out and have a tantrum. But mummy, that was 100%. That was 100%.
Oh dear, I do enjoy my sense of humour, but hopefully other people do. Otherwise, this thing may not go very far. So that was it. I did want to touch base quickly on Hudger again. Suggestions from the public that maybe he move into the Red Bull seat. I hope they leave him alone. We need this one to get through the crawling phase before he starts sprinting, and just leave him alone. He's doing really well.
Leave Hudger alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it, just leave him alone. More serious topics, just to bring things out. How are they going to fix the issues of red flags during practice and qualifying and grass fires?
I think grass fires are a pretty secluded issue to Japan.
It's probably more talking about the session pauses, obviously, in practice. So they didn't miss out on time. But the impact in qualifying that could have happened is something that they probably need to consider. But the real thing for me was, and I didn't know this until this weekend, the cause of the fires, other than obviously dry grass and sparks, were the skid blocks on the cars. So the skid blocks are there. I thought as a safety mechanism for understanding when the cars were bottoming out. But they're not. They're there purely for show. No engineering benefit whatsoever. No nothing. Not to stop the cars bottoming out on the ground. They're literally there to create sparks so people can go, whoa. So if that's the case and it's causing red flags, one would assume, and one does assume, that they all weigh the same because they're probably a standard construction. So why didn't they just take them off? Like, it literally wrecked the spectacle of Friday altogether because there were 4 red flags on free practice 1 and 2 of them were from the skid block starting fires. So why don't they just get rid of them? And it made the commentators go on and on and on about non-ferrous materials and trying to find someone to make skid blocks that don't emit sparks so they won't catch fire. And I'm thinking, you're all talking about making something that doesn't create sparks so there's no fire. So take them off. Then there's no sparks anyway. And then everyone's fine. We can get on with life. Can you tell I'm worked up? There was not a lot in this race for us to talk about.
No, definitely
not. We've hung on to the peripheral, and this is the tripe I'm delivering.
But this isn't the first time we've had grass fires. It's not the first time that this happened, and I'm just kicking my stuff again. It's not the first time this has happened.
You're fired up.
So I am fired up about the fire. It's not the first time it's happened, and it probably won't be the last. But the fires that were happening there was no one near them. There was no car that just went past. There was no nothing, and then it's just in the middle of nowhere. One small section catches on fire. So I'm less thinking that it's the skid blocks and more thinking that it's probably something in the grass.
Well, they reckon that when it was happening, I think it was in Qatar last year or somewhere like that, that they put a chemical on the grass to stop it from catching fire, which I found really, really astounding that you could put chemicals onto something and it stops fires. But
it's not generally how that works.
But they did it and it fixed it. And I would have thought and initially, and again, not a great thought from me, but I was trying to solve the problem without taking the skid blocks off. I was like, why don't they just water the lawn? And then I realised, of course, if they hit it on a slick tyre, it will cause safety concerns. So why there's grass at the track at all, if it's an issue, just get rid of it.
There's a lot of grass there as well, and obviously that's why a lot of the build circuits have those runoffs where they're just concrete and signs and stuff. But there's a lot of grass there.
There is. So they need to fix that. Maybe they can take the grass out, widen the track, and make it more entertaining for next year.
More passing, wider track, more passing opportunities. Do you think maybe another couple of DRS zones?
Absolutely. It's one of those ones where tradition is keeping it on the list for me, but it is really close to being kicked off. No wonder it's not the finale anymore. Can you imagine that last year? Or...
No.
Like when there's 1 point between the two leaders going to the last race and we go to Japan and the title's over with qualifying.
Yeah, it would have made Abu Dhabi 2021 a little a little boring if it was Japan 2021.
Might as well have had it at Vegas. At least we could talk about the sphere and the pig.
But well, that's it. And unlike Monaco, there's no good sign. There's no good view here. There's not even that it's a historical race in terms of like for the drivers, like where they're driving through and seeing that sort of spectacle and things like that. It's no.
I did enjoy some of the fans, and I did enjoy the kids dressed up as Formula One drivers. They were heroes.
Kids were awesome. One of my highlights from the whole weekend,
which says a lot about the race weekend itself. Having a look at standings as we come out of it, and Australia, woe is you for putting on the rain, because without it, Oscar would be equal with Max on points from my calculation.
Just imagine if they had have let Oscar go to fight Verstappen right now, how the top three would look in terms of points.
There'd be a few points difference. The standings would be
the same.
Yes, but it would
but I think there would be like a 5-point gap between first and third.
Yes, there would be. Yeah, there would be.
Which would be crazy. Absolutely crazy.
So Norris first on 62, Verstappen second on 61. Again, lucky the fastest lap has been taken out of it. Otherwise, Verstappen would be on top. And Piastri third on 49, Russell on 45, Antonelli, question without notice, on track to potentially beat the record for a rookie in points hauls,
which is held by Hamilton. Yep.
Yes. And in prestigious company as well. I think Clay Regazzoni is on that list when he drove for Ferrari. So it's quite prestigious company to be in, but at this rate, he is on track to beat Hamilton if he continues scoring points each round.
Do just want to say as well, Antonelli became the youngest Formula One driver ever to lead a Grand Prix. He also got fastest lap this weekend, so that was crazy too.
All while still studying for his A-levels, so doing an amazing job, and certainly an eat our words moment in terms of what we expected from him. Charles Leclerc again had a nothing weekend, still in 6th. Albon in 7th, gradually making his way out of the points, but 3 times in a row has he made points. So
I have just seen this. I've looked at this many a times.
How have you only just seen it?
How is Ocon just behind Hamilton?
Then through goes Hamilton.
How have I missed this?
Well, because he's a benefactor of the wet race in Australia, because you'll notice that Lance Stroll is only just hanging on in 10th on the same number of points.
Yeah, I'm expecting him to go back down. So that's near. But hang on a minute. Ocon was also the beneficiary of Hamilton, Leclerc, and Gasly getting DQs as well.
100%. Yeah, 100% okay. He was. So it will readjust itself. But I think where we're headed is going to be a racing bull. Noting that we've got a race this weekend again. We're off to Bahrain. I think at the end of this weekend, as a prediction, we're going to have a racing bull in the top 10. replacing Lance Stroll, who is gradually making his way out of that seat.
Just last minute, sir. Do you have the 11th to 20th points?
I think I'll be able to pull it up if you can do some sort of entertaining dance or jig while I do it.
No, I'm just going to waffle on about how 8th, 9th, and 10th is Ferrari, Haas, and Aston Martin. And not the drivers that you would think either. Hamilton, Ocon, and Stroll being next to each other in the driver's standing. I know we're only 3 races and a sprint race in, but what? So I'm still just trying to make sense of that.
So I'll bring this up. It's not as clear as
Just like to do some mathematical equations.
So you can sort of see here, I'm sharing my screen. You've got Nico Hülkenberg, your favourite man, who is on 6 points.
Hülkenberg.
Crikey, that'll blast out your speakers. We've got Ollie Beerman on 5, Hadja on 4, Yuki on 3, and Sainz Jr. on 1, with Doohan, Lawson, Alonso, Gasly, and Bortoletto on none. I think, and we'll get into predictions shortly, but I think Hadjar could be in the top 10 at the end of this coming weekend. And I think Ollie Behrman might be there as well in place of Ocon and Stroll.
I was going to say, with the company that is currently holding 9th and 10th, it would, and the luck that they had and how Stroll's gone from double points to 20th, I think you're definitely on the money there. I didn't. I was just doing some maths there, so no. I think you're definitely on the money there.
So, and we'll quickly have a look at the team standings. There's not a lot of change there, as you would expect. But we've got McLaren consolidating at the top, which is the big fear for everybody else, because I can't see them being beaten already for the drivers, for the team World Championship. No. I think that's already, we'll call it early, but I think that's already done and dusted. I think the bookies can hand the money back.
Yeah. I think we actually said that early, that McLaren were going to get the...
Yeah, we did. We said there was no way that Red Bull were going to get it. So we've both. No. I think we both can get a tick for that. But I think that was the easy bet, the gimme.
Yeah.
What isn't a gimme and what is a surprise is Mercedes versus Max Verstappen. Against Red Bull Racing, and then how high up Ferrari will end up finishing if they can get their act together. And remember, we've got a batch of upgrades due in a couple of races.
So that's yep.
And take that into consideration as well with where Max is at versus where Lando and Oscar are at in terms of pace and stuff. Or they'll just leave that one as a juicy teaser. But with batch of upgrades, Ferrari could challenge Red Bull. I don't think there's any doubt about that. So I actually would go out at this stage and say that Ferrari will probably still finish third, because I just can't see Red Bull having 2 cars in the points every weekend. But Ferrari have managed, other than the DQ, obviously, and if the DQ hadn't happened, they'd be a lot closer to third. But they've had cars in double points every race so far this year.
I was going to say as well, Williams or Albon are battling against Haas and Ferrari as well. So if Williams if Sainz does, make something of the car and get into it, or get the new chassis or whatever it is that's, in the gremlins at the moment for him, they might be in that sort of position as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
To sort of step up.
Aston Martin will drop down. Even with the Adrian Newey involvement. I mean, they might get some upgrades, but from what we've been told, his focus is firmly on next year. So,
yeah,
but equally, if they're not going to get sort of that 5th or 6th place finish and get the money that comes with that, they might change direction. Racing Bulls, well, let's see if they improve. Hadjar there flying the flag for them solo. Kick Sauber, not even worrying about, an Alpine equally. Showing where they probably should have finished last year ahead of that lucky race where they got the huge points that kicked them up into 6th.
If you were Alpine, if you were anyone at Alpine right now, seeing Kick Sauber sitting with 6 points, you would just, I don't know, leave.
Fire Pierre Gasly is what I would do. Actually, what I would do? I would get rid of the meddlesome old man.
I said when we spoke about him coming back that I don't think he's got any place there anymore.
No.
It's not the same world. It's not the same. It's not his sport as that he left it in, and the things that he did and the things he were involved in and the way that he was looked upon as, he gets what he wants type scenario. He doesn't have that anymore. He doesn't
No,
have
that doesn't exist.
No.
And he's a consultant. So I know he was a consultant at Benetton, but he's a consultant again, and consultants have their day.
Yep.
So in terms of from the weekend surprise packet, I did Kimi, you did Alonso. I'm going to give you that tip because I think that Alonso had a much better weekend than Kimi did in terms of expected versus result. Biggest mover, the Hulk.
Well, he
and
finished
Ocon.
the race.
Well, that did help.
But
he finished 11th.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah.
Hulk and Ocon is the biggest mover. I think we both missed that mark one there as well. And then pole position and winner, I did the double Max, you did the double Oscar, and unfortunately, and I mean that wholeheartedly, I was correct. Which I think levels up our tipping so far because we both did zeros in Australia and you won last round, and I have taken the bickies in this round. So we head to Bahrain this weekend. We're back into one of those delicious zones where we have a race for 3 weekends in a row, almost 3 weekends in a row.
We were so spoilt having 3 races in a row at Sunday afternoon time. So spoiled to sit down with the family and sit down at a reasonable time, and now my alarm clock will revolve around 20 men driving around in race cars, and me making vroom vroom noises like Phil.
Yeah, well, I mean, Bahrain actually isn't.
Is it 5?
It's 3 a.m.
3 a.m.
our time, so it's not the worst one, but we're getting into that time, and of course we've flicked off daylight savings and stuff, so it'll be an early race on Monday morning for us, but
3 a.m. works for me. It's the 1 a.m.
suits.
races that just doesn't.
Doesn't.
That's well and truly past my bedtime.
Doesn't tickle your pickle.
No, that's potato time for me. Potato hour.
Surprise packet this weekend. Who are we looking at here? What do you think?
You're going first this week. I'm going to put it to you. I am going to put it all to you this week. So
I'm going to have to go first.
Surprise packet.
Do I have to?
You do.
Oh, this is great radio. I'm gonna go and I need thinking music. I'm gonna go with Jack Doohan just because.
Okay.
Because it's the easiest choice for me to make. I think he'll qualify well, and I think he'll run well at a track. I'm gonna say without any fact checking whatsoever, he's driven up before. I literally haven't fact checked that, so don't take that as gospel.
I'm actually going to go Yuki. I know. I've spoken a lot, but I think surprise packet. I think will be Yuki.
I need some clarification. I need context. What does is that Yuki not saying anything and then just getting in the car and driving? Like, what do you mean by surprise packet with Yuki?
I don't know. I actually think it'll be like a Q3 appearance and a top 10 finish.
That's a big call. Okay.
I think there's more opportunity for racing driving at Bahrain in terms of passing and racecraft and things like that, and seeing. Yep. I think that'll be the surprise. I think that's where I'm going to go.
All right. Biggest mover. I'm going to go with Carlos to finally master the Williams.
I'm actually going to double. I've written that down. I'm actually going to double that. I'm going to go Carlos as well.
Boring. I know. Pole position. Who's going to take it out of the 3 potentials?
Max.
You're going to go with a Max.
Yep.
I'm going to go with Oscar's race there. I'm going to go with Oscar because he's raced there before.
See, that was the hard one because I said coming out last time that Piastri would have been annoyed at Australia, and he came out and qualied, took pole, won the race. So I'm expecting him to come out with that level of aggression. I say level of aggression. As level of aggression as Oscar gets in terms of clear head and amazing racecraft, but I think it'll be him battling Max.
Yep. And for the win?
Max.
Oh, I'm going to go Oscar. So we're going the double air against the two hopefuls who are going to get that done. So, another race weekend. So we are doing this pretty much weekly as it stands anyway. So the pod will be out Tuesday morning. And if you're listening to this, it doesn't matter me telling you when it's going to be out. But the next one will be out on Tuesday morning following the Bahrain Grand Prix. Which is on this weekend. So looking forward to that. And we've tipped our winners. Make sure you leave your tips in the comments. So far, nobody has done it. So please get on and do it. Tell us who you think is going to be the surprise, biggest mover, and qualify on pole and take the win.
And just topics as well. Is there anything you guys want us to, anyone wants us to touch on inside the media world of Formula One or the race world of Formula One? Drop them down below and we can do our best to get the facts kind of right and go from there.
And if anyone from Fox Sports is listening, if you need to do any fact checking or you just want some general feedback on how to make comment on any professional sport, please do drop us a line or make a comment in the comment section below. Be more than happy to ignore it and just say whatever the hell we want anyway. And that pretty much sums us up for another week on the Top Step podcast. Thank you to the millions of fans that have joined in. But no, we genuinely appreciate the support of those of you who have given it. And we'll remember you when we are on the Top Step ourselves, spraying that champagne.
Unless you're Jackie Villeneuve.
Unless you are. Do not say that name. That is disgusting. And on that note, it is time to sign off. I am Stuart Brown. Thank you very much for joining.
Reese Ashmore, have a great time. We'll see you next week.
We will indeed. And almost my favourite part of the show, other than the intro that you put on last time, is the ending one. So let's crack it out now. Enjoy.
Well, that's a checkered flag. We're at the end of the race. Thanks for tuning in. You kept up the pace. Reese and Stu are signing off today, but don't forget to like, subscribe, drop your predictions down in the comments below. Who's taking the win? We gotta know from the top step. We'll see you next time.
Banger.
Absolute banger. Stop.